To you to the panel. Thank you so much for being spontaneous here on the panel, all of you. I mean, it's a very prominent panel right now. I'm very glad that you all came and you found some time to talk about it. For us, it's very important not only to have the local viewpoint, but also to have an international viewpoint. It's an international challenge. And therefore, I welcome very much on stage Eleni Alexaki from Athens, Greece. She's Senior Cultural and Educational Affairs Specialist of the Public Affairs Office of the US Embassy in Greece, focused on migration and refugee projects. Very welcome, Eleni. Then we have Ms. Jasmina Tesanovic. She's author, feminist, activist, and filmmaker. She was born in Belgrade, organized the first feminist conference in Eastern Europe, and is author of The Diary of a Political Idiot and War Diary. She's a peace activist. Furthermore, Brian Reich is the director of the HIVE, a special project of USA for UNHCR. The HIVE was formed to be an instrument for changing the conversation in the US around the refugee crisis. Welcome. Then we've got Levente Varga over there. Levente is from Budapest, Hungary, and he has been working in the Global Learning Center of the UN Refugee Agency. Currently he's working as the founder and CEO of Drone IQ, a software platform to shorten disaster recovery period and help people get back to their homes soon. Then we've got Mike Butcher, editor-at-large at TechCrunch. Welcome, Mike. He's writer, broadcaster, and editor, one of the 50 most influential Britons in technology. There's the Daily Telegraph. I wish you since yesterday. Ron, journalist, thank you very much for your speech. Interested in changing real lives with digital products. And then, last but not least, Marcus from Jordan, sitting in the center, CEO for the August Schwingenstein Foundation, investors in digital education of journalists, and a new business dynamic in the field of media. So thank you very much for coming. Let me first ask you, Mike, what was your impression now on the presentation of Ron? Did you have any
I thought it was fantastic, and it was really, really wonderful overview of some of the stuff that's come through. I think I almost feel like a charlatan, because it's almost like the Thomas Edison thinking that he was the only one to invent electricity, when in fact, of course, so many of us have had the similar idea to get technology solutions involved with the issue of refugees, but we just didn't even know about each other. And I think it's so it's sort of funny in a funny little strange way, but also wonderful, and that so many people have got involved in this issue and the subject. So just briefly, the tech refugees issue was, well, the word or the community effectively was literally just me and some friends in London coming up with, I came up with the word, I guess, and then it just became a kind of internet meme and took off, and now we've had tech refugees events and hackathons in Sydney, Melbourne, Warsaw, Oslo, New York, San Francisco, and it's just obviously pushing in an open door for the technology community wanting to get involved with this issue, and you can see that from this panel right now, and an enormous amount of goodwill going on right now.
Ron, did you get a similar perspective, or?
Yeah. As I was watching the presentation, what struck me is how disconnected the American perspective is on the refugee crisis, right? So there is a lot of compassion, there's a lot of energy, there's a lot of interest among Americans, and particularly in the tech community right now. But not only the lack of awareness about the things that are going on locally, which is causing some redundancy, a lot of people here trying to do things that have already been done, but also I think a lack of appreciation for the challenge as a whole. The United States is just a different market. And you said something at the end that was very striking, which is this is about humans and we need to communicate the humanity of this. I'm gonna belittle my American counterparts, the entire country, in saying this, but say I think Americans in a lot of ways care about themselves more than they care about other people, and the challenge that we have in getting the United States to constructively engage and the tech community in the United States to constructively engage is not the same as simply telling the stories of what is going on and helping people to appreciate the human dynamic. Because I do think we appreciate it, but we're not motivated to then do the right things. So I actually think that the challenge we're trying to take on in the United States, and any help from all involved would be welcome, is to find the ways in which to tap into the things that Americans know how to do, already are motivated to do, and find strategic and innovative ways to apply that to the refugee crisis. We're not going to change Americans into do-gooders who can appreciate the refugee crisis the same way people across Europe who have a very direct connection to it will be able to. But we can leverage what we have in the United States in very different ways if we think about it differently. So, sort of, how can we hand off the baton to the United States as opposed to trying to get more tech companies and individuals in the United States to act the way the European tech refugees community has, or the folks that you cited. I think it's just a different orientation on the same challenge.
So just a small interruption. I would like to inform you about our hashtag. It's Kreativ München. If you're familiar with German, it's Kreativ Munich, which is Munchen. So if you post or send anything on the panel, please feel free to use the hashtag, of course, as well as the hashtag of the German House. Thank you. Markus, what came up in your mind when you saw Ron's presentation?
Yeah, as I am living near to Munich, I know most of the story he was telling, and he is one of my heroes in that whole situation. There are some on different scales. I run a little small website in my very region near to Munich, a refugee website on Facebook, only just to match donations and the need. And more and more it came up, it's not so much about donations, but about information and about telling people who are willing to help where it was able to help, who they could talk to. And I think that's necessary to understand that in all the projects I heard about, it's always about people wanting to help and trying to figure out how this was possible. And this is the vast chance we have through digital technology, that even the very small potentials of willingness to help could become factual. And that would have not been possible 30 years ago, but it is now. And it's important that anyone sees that if he is willing to help, there is something he can do about it. A little bit, even if he is a manager and has 3 children and 3 companies and I don't know what, but there is always something you can do, and that is trying to fight fear. And we got to make the refugee help a success story, because it is now a fear story. And we had a terrible election yesterday in Germany, and the whole political scene was moving towards right. We feel ashamed about that. We never had that since end of the Second World War. We never imagined that could return. We're now facing it, and this is so much about fear. This is because not only of right-wing politicians growing fear in the minds of people, but this makes a pressure that brings normal politicians, democratic politicians, to follow this pressure and trying to play with the fears too to reach their aims and goals. And it's not about only politics, but media, because you have to see that fear sells. Fear is a perfect seller.
I think this is why I think the engagement of the technology community with the refugee issue is so important, because basically we're coming at from an entrepreneurial standpoint. We're not saying these people are going to come and take our jobs and all that kind of that far right language. We're talking about people who are productive members of society, who are going to contribute to our society, who are positive. And I think that's one of the things that it comes out a lot when you have these conversations, is that refugees are not about, a drain on resources, all that kind of stupid language. It's about actual, positive entrepreneurialism, creation, all those kinds of great good things. And having that conversation about in the technology community is incredibly important, because it gives the politicians a way into the conversation that is positive and is not backward, not negative.
Okay, I was, first of all, I would like to say that I really don't like the word refugee as opposed to citizen, you know. Like, I've been coming to the United States for more than 10 years now because I'm half American, you know. And every time I come to the border, they ask me, are you a citizen? And always I say, look, I'm a citizen, but not of your country, you know. And then the other stuff is like, I was a refugee myself, you know, in the wars of ex-Yugoslavia, and I really hated that word. I really hated it, because you would go to a hospital, and they would, you would have this category that where you declare yourself a refugee, you know, and which would give you, of course, free health care and many good things. But it is such a discriminational language. We must find another way of calling people, like, you know, also this YouTube that the child was, you know, it was a viral thing that they asked, are you a refugee? And the child says, no, I'm a child, and my name is such and such, you know. So I think this is like the first step. I was very impressed by your presentation, because like all these things happened 20 years ago in Yugoslavia, where I lived. I mean, the first, you know, it was my story, but we didn't have high technology as we have now, you know. So many organizational things, of course, can be easier, you know. But I'm afraid that we have also problems that high tech has today, like Facebook, you know, that we are not in control of our technology. Totally, you see. So I'm all in favor of designing our own applications. Since now I live in Italy, I met a woman just a week ago who was telling me she's not a professional geek like I'm not. You know, I'm not professional activist, you know, and I'm not professional geek. This woman, she just came up to me and said, I know you did this kind of stuff. I designed an application in my firm. I asked people to design this application for translation among children, because most of these people who come, for example, to Italy can't speak Italian, and Italians are notorious for not speaking any language but Italian, you know. But the children are much more apt in integration, so they often work as a function, as a translator to the parents, you know. They take them around, they communicate among themselves first. They don't have any, you know, they don't know if they're a refugee or a child or, you know, where they come from. They kind of bond together and belong to the space. And so this is the kind of things I would like to see much more than just using the existing technology, some kind of free internet world that are not so free anymore, you know. And on the other hand, I would, I think you covered quite a lot, you know, of everything that it took us so many years to do in former Yugoslavia, although we did it all. I mean, it's like the same situation that never ends. It's just becoming bigger and all over the world and globalized. But from my own experience and from what I'm trying to do now in Italy, maybe I should say it now or next time?
Next time.
Next time, okay, good.
Thank you for the invitation. I want to say that I was very impressed by Ron's presentation, and what was really impressive was that you were adjusting your offering based on the different needs that you saw, and on what worked and what doesn't work. And I think you showed a flexibility that is very important at the local scale. The fact that we talked about earlier, that you're not already an NGO established, and I have nothing against NGOs, I think they're doing wonderful work, but sometimes in problems like that are massive and so surprising in a way, having that flexibility that a volunteer group offers is very important. So that was very impressive, and I think for smart cities and smart citizens, there are a lot of high-tech and low-tech solutions right now to attack this issue of the refugees. Several are happening in Athens, several are happening across the islands that are receiving these thousands of people every day. I'm interested in hearing more about other ideas, not only technology ideas, simple ideas. Maybe artists have solutions that they can offer, but that's what we need now. I think this is a global problem. This is millions of people suffering right now. And maybe the solution is at the local level, like Munich showed.
Yeah, first of all, congratulations, Ron. I think it's an amazing thing that you are doing. And yeah, as a techie person, I can really appreciate your methods. Design thinking methods, I think it's an insane speed you are developing these apps. It's a really fast cycle, so in these situations I think it's very useful and it's necessary to iterate in a fast pace like this. And as I was working in the Global Learning Center of United Nations, so I was developing technical solutions. And one thing really caught my attention, that you were saying that creating compassion for people and getting people to volunteer is also a kind of challenge. So now we are working with VR technologies in my current startup. And what I was thinking, I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Clouds Over Syria. It's a short documentary. Anybody seen that? Okay. What it is about is it's a tool. It's a short video made with 360 cameras. It's about the story of a 14-year-old girl in Jordan, situated in a refugee camp. And it's 360 cameras in virtual reality is a new way of storytelling. So I think that's a really great tool for catching people's attention and getting people to volunteer, for example. And these devices are becoming much cheaper, much more available. This is a 360 camera. You can get it for $300 now. This is a VR glass, Google Cardboard. You can get it for a few cents. I mean, the production is just a few cents. So I mean, this can be a really great tool for showing people the life of refugees, making compassion, getting them to volunteer. I think there's a great opportunity for that. And if you can check out this Clouds Over Syria video made by one of the UN agencies. I think maybe UNHCR or UNAIDS. And it's a great video to get people's attention about the situation. And I think with tools like this, it would be really great to get the attention of people who are, for example, young people who are not that receptive for these kind of issues.
I was only just going to add to bolster your point. One of the issues is that people don't realise how long people spend in refugee camps. The global average was 17 years. It's tacked up to 22. So children are being born inside refugee camps. That's all they know. And the mental health of refugees is incredibly, it's a big issue. And digital storytelling can help with that, right? So the Clouds of Sidra documentary that you mentioned, which I covered for TechCrunch as a journalist, was released last year at the World Economic Forum for the first time, and it puts a person into a refugee camp. Now, not only is that great for empathy, so people in the West or in developed countries where there's no water or strife or whatever, that puts them into the situation. Suddenly they get that refugee experience of being inside a refugee camp, which is incredibly important, especially given all the political situation we're talking about right now. And secondly, as children, when they are able to create artistry, think one of the amazing pieces of work done recently about mental health amongst children, about how they can get over, work through some of the issues, it's just by just composing music or doing art. And and we can actually get involved with that as technologists. We can help them to work through on digital storytelling or making little videos and these kinds of things. But I want to call out, I'm going to tag team now briefly with my compatriot Andalib Shah, who is going to also tell you about some projects that's going on in the States that we're helping out. But Andalib's going to take over from me, because I'm in London and Andalib is working on refugees in the US. Right, so you sit there.
Hello, everyone. I want to bring up a couple points. One, Brian, I know you mentioned something about compassion in the US and how, in the US we care more about ourselves than others, and I definitely see your point. I think I don't agree with it entirely, because I do think the biggest problem is connecting the U.S. to the stories that are happening. The hackathon that we did 2 weeks ago in San Francisco, we had engineers from all over, from Yahoo, from Coffee Meets Bagel, bringing some pretty solid experience to the table. And at the hackathon, we asked people to give our feedback, and what they told us was, look, we don't even know what's happening there because our media is too busy covering Trump and reality shows and things like that. So it's really about connecting the dot. I think that's the biggest piece that's missing. I do want to say thank you so much for presenting. Mike and I were just chatting about how you hit on the main point, which is fragmentation. There's all these technologies in little silos that are happening, but there's so much fragmentation that there's no connection. And so, my goal is I joined forces with Mike to build a bridge between all those fragmented silos, so that we're working with you. I didn't even know about Kiran or Hesketh or Technogenesis. And so, that's our goal, is to just build the bridge between all the technology that's happening, and also be able to vet it, right? Because I think someone touched on scaling. We don't want to just have 1,000 different things happening, and we can't scale those ideas. We want to, at TechRefugees, act as vetting those projects, connecting the dots, vetting the projects, and collaborating instead of reinventing the wheel.
Can I just add on to that, though? I think the connections that need to be made need to extend, and I think your personal experience, which you were talking about, addresses some of this, but I think there's a tendency for all of the different segments of the community who are interested in helping refugees to maybe connect within themselves, but not to connect with each other. So the State Department and the White House, have political influence on a global level, and corporate America has intelligence and capacity and capabilities that do not exist within the humanitarian community. The humanitarian community, has the on-the-ground experience and the access and the direct ability to have influence. The conversation between those three, which is happening at present, is not particularly constructive or efficient. The humanitarian community does not know how to define the needs, right? And so people run off and they start doing things because they think it makes sense. And yes, it does make sense, but maybe not as much in priority as something else, right? And so you mentioned scale, and I think scale is really the question here at the end of the day, right? Because you must be exhausted, right? And will continue to be exhausted trying to address every individual person's interest in helping, and every little fire that pops up in this conversation. So if it is possible for us to step back one place and go, okay, what are the unique capacities of the humanitarian sector, of the tech sector, of government, of private citizens, individuals, right, who may or may not have skills, and how do we distinguish what their contributions are and where they come in the path, right? Collaboration, in the sense that everyone's sitting around the table and working on something together, ridiculously difficult, right? But moving pieces around and building on top of everything else is hugely important. So we've been trying, and with TechRefugees also, saying, the conversation that happened in London at TechRefugees in December, what could we pick up from there, bring across the ocean, so when we're in New York or Palo Alto having a conversation, it's not repeating a conversation, but it's adding something that, in our case, is uniquely American, right? And when, the things that are built out of Silicon Valley, out of the hackathon, for example, that you mentioned there, no one should ever build those things again. They should only build on top of them. But to be perfectly honest and sort of critical of the community at large at South by Southwest here, people don't like to share, right? There's a certain element of, I want credit for saving the day. And I will just say it right now, none of us, and no one in this room, and no one at this festival, and no one in the United States will solve the global refugee crisis on their own, right? So we either figure out how to systematically and constructively approach this, or, we should, move on to some extent, because we know the limitations of our individual actions. And the crisis is greater than any or all of us. So we have to come at it very differently.
And if I may add something about fragmentation and coordination, this is a huge issue also on the ground in Greece and in Turkey also. What we see is that the players are so many and they came together so quickly. We have international NGOs, we have the UN, we have global players, and then we have local NGOs, we have volunteer groups from Greece, we have volunteer groups from all over the world, and all of them do not really know how to work with each other. Sometimes they don't know they're in the same place. We have at the US Embassy in Athens, and what does the US Embassy in Athens do for the refugees? Anyway, we're giving small grants and capacity building for local NGOs, and we facilitate. So what we try to do is we try to create these linkages and bring people together and notify Mercy Corps that there is another group that's working on the ground. So, but that cannot save the day. So maybe there is a way through technology to bring all these groups together and kind of deconflict what they're doing, because we're seeing a lot of groups are doing the same thing and then they're missing out on another need. They're covering a need that is already covered by others, and they're not covering a need that no one is seeing.
Although, I mean, yes, I think there's more that technology can and should do, and actually TechFugees is, and this is, I think, a big part of what TechFugees, certainly in the United States, is taking on. My group, The Hive, has been volunteering, begging, cajoling to play that role, and in concept nobody has said no thank you. We don't want to be more organized, right? But in practice, people are not sharing the information. So ultimately, at the end of the day, I completely agree with you. We need to change the narrative on from fear to success and all that. We also need to change the narrative on how we address this problem. And I think the word collaboration is actually the wrong concept. I think it's unrealistic. I think it's very difficult. But I think we do have to think about teamwork, right? If you take like a basketball analogy, there are 5 players on the court, right? But only one of them gets the ball at any given time, right? And so we have to pass the ball around, and depending on the defense, depending on the situation in the game, you might pass it to the really tall guy who's underneath the basket. You might pass it to the little short guy who's shooting from way outside. But if the 5 of them don't work together, the team will lose. So we have way more than 5. We have thousands of people all around the world with different skills and everything. They are not, I don't think we can expect them to collaborate, and I don't think technology will magically allow the information to be organized. I think we need the leadership and the prioritization to say both, this is where we need your help, and stop doing this because what you are doing is actually not helpful. And you said it in you had to tell some people, and it was probably a very difficult conversation, right? I'm sorry, but what you're doing is not useful. It's actually either limiting our potential or, alienating other people. And I imagine like that helped other parts, not just shutting down things that are not constructive.
I couldn't agree more. It's really the collaboration thing. It's really striking to me. It's really striking. We have so many groups, and they're all trying to do the same thing. And it's really what I found out in I would argue it's a mixed bag. It's you can use technology for all of that, but people get kind of tired reading all the same stories, all the same headlines, all the same. The pool of pictures of images that we see is kind of way limited. So the people get just bored. But when you bring them together and you talk, that you just let them talk. That's what I was trying to do for the last weeks. I said, hey guys, you're building this, you're building this. It's pretty much the same. And if you're building it just in a separate way, it will be done in 3 months. Why don't you guys talk to each other? And it works out pretty well sometimes. Sometimes there's also something in people, when you help somebody, that's what I learned. It's a completely new thing to me. It's also for yourself. There are some people out there who came up to us and they were like, oh yeah, but where are those refugees? We're quoting it like this, where are those refugees? Can I take pictures with them? So they were helping, but they're also helping them to show it to their friends, stuff like that. We hated that we forbid people to take pictures. But that's also happening in the tech community. If the girls, the example I've been giving on Facebook, they really believe that they can change this, and there's also a big they in this equation. And we will have to transform it into a we, and I think we can do it with every form of technology, of just bringing people together on a local level. I heard so many things about the States. I heard about something like the YMCA or the Weight Watchers. who would support each other, and just by bringing themselves into the same room, by doing mentoring and stuff like that. And I think if we can pull out the fear aspect and just show them that it's pretty much the same if you gather together in a YMCA, or if you gather with some guys, from different countries, you can't speak their language, but you can play football or something, you can do the same thing. It will just bring down this fear. This is, I think, how we should approach this.
I just want to quickly add, I really like the piece that Brian said about not collaborating and in fact being a team. And a great example of that is when we had our hackathon, the Hive came in as an expert on the ground. So it's about building the pipes, right? Being a conduit. The governments and the corporations have the money to throw at NGOs. The NGOs have the on-the-ground expertise that us working in the tech world, I don't have. I can provide my background in tech, and so it's not collaboration. You're right. It's passing the ball when everybody bringing their expertise. Corporations, governments bring the money, NGOs bring their expertise, and tech world is guided by those organizations.
I would like to ask Levente on the situation in Hungary first. How is it for you working in Hungary in such a difficult political environment with this issue?
Hungary is at the moment, at least the politics is not the most welcoming for refugees, but don't judge me. I'm living now in Chile actually, so I'm a bit distracted from the whole situation. Yes, Hungary has a different kind of politics now about refugees. It's more about to keep them out, to say it simply. I think it's important about education, so that's why I was talking about these new storytelling technologies as well. So when I was showing this to people around me who were skeptical about, for example, refugees, when you can see it yourself, you can be in the situation of one of the refugees in one of the camps, it changes the perception. So they were shivering, they didn't know it's a different perception seeing yourself in the camp, or if you could show it, for example, a situation in Syria that you could be in one of the cities bombed, then I think that's really something that you can use for shaping the thinking of people. And on the other side, you can use these technologies also for refugees, for educational purposes, on differences between Europe and the Middle Eastern world. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there.
Marcus, you're a journalist. You have a very special perspective as a journalist on this. Is there a possibility to steer the whole discussion a little bit, to conduct it in a different direction?
Well, as I said, it's not easy because fear sells, and this is not only in politics but also in media. And we all see so many pictures and movies, and we are all very aware of the problems. And I think, and this is what we try to do in both organizations I'm engaged in, we try to influence that situation and make people see what are the solutions, what are the possibilities, what are the chances in this, and not always hear only what the problem is, how difficult it would be, because we know we're trying to help, we know how difficult it is. It's not only complicated, but it's also on a personal level. To me, it's really, really difficult. We were talking about speech problem, language problem. I got invited by a family, we helped a lot, and they had baptism for the child, and we couldn't communicate, literally not. There was no English, no German, no nothing. And they invited us for that holy day. And it was so maximum important for those people. And we were sitting there for hours with them, not able to communicate. And you cannot imagine how ashamed you could be, how it's difficult. let's not tell people that it was not difficult, but give them the stories of success. There are stories of success. And so what I maybe would tell you, any one of you, was really that when you come across media reports on solutions, share them, donate your reach, your social reach, tell other people, let them know that it is easy to do. No, it's not easy to do, but it is possible. So this is our approach on the whole thing. It's not so much the technical stuff. Still, I totally agree on you. It's about teamwork. The difference between teamwork and collaboration, it is you have to take vanity out of the game. That's it.
There's a site that just launched actually called Refugees Deeply, refugees.deeply.ly, whatever, you can search it. But if you're familiar with Deeply, Deeply is this sort of extraordinary new journalism model focused around context. And one of the things that they have original reporting, but they're aggregating, they want to be aggregating particularly the stories of the use of technology and things for success. So not only donate your reach, which I think is a fantastic point, but but allow the aggregation of those stories so that there's a repository for everyone else to draw from, and it's not just ad hoc. So completely agree.
Can I say something? Okay, I wanted to say that refugees and wars are also a very big business, and we must be aware of it. So we shouldn't really allow that these categories, let's say that this thing happens only in the governments and only in professional institutions. If the refugees are helped out by people on the ground, they're going to be part of our community, they're going to be integrated, and at that point we're avoiding a lot of difficulties which could be abuse of the so-called refugees question in political ways, in economical ways, because trust me, I've seen it happen. You have a whole lot of people working on the backs of refugees who still stay outsiders to the society where they are supposed to be integrated. On my own experience, I've seen in Italy and in Serbia also that people on the ground, volunteers, they're jumping in the situation, help much more than very often important and rich institutions. And they just go there because they can't help seeing, like in Belgrade, a couple of months ago when the thing started. In downtown Belgrade, where the railway station is, it was full of refugees. And people just came there, from Belgrade, bringing food, organizing party, bringing internet. All of a sudden it became the coolest part of the town, And then the other groups joined, the government, the official, groups that, I don't even know the names. In Italy, the same thing. We have people dying every year. You know how many people are just drowned down in southern Italy? They're still drowning, day by day. We don't even count them. They land in Italy and they're just taken in by people, who can value their, notwithstanding the fascism, notwithstanding the xenophobia, notwithstanding everything that you have in Italy, much more than you have in Germany, because it's been going on for years. And my idea about how to deal with that, to avoid the people who come over in a foreign country to become desperate, to become violent, to have problems with mental health and cultural integration, to become terrorists, because this is all really dangerous to become radicals, is to involve them in initiatives which are local and also national. Like my idea was, why, Sanremo, a big musical festival that we have in Italy, which is international, they have a lot of money, they try to be very open, they're inviting like Madonna, Lady Gaga, children from small villages. My idea was to make, through internet and social media, bring over the refugees, Italian in Italy, I'm sure that they have great talents in singing, in dancing. They can bring a lot of, creativity, because they're very creative people. You can kill everything, but you cannot kill joy and creativity, especially young people. They come out of Auschwitz and survive and, have a smile on their face, So I didn't manage to do it because the big faces in Sanremo and famous people in music, they just didn't, they didn't react. Maybe next year, But you just put a piano in the middle of the station and people come across and play it, you know? You've seen maybe these things. So this is my way of, I think we should much more involve these channels which have nothing to do with the word refugees, with the political definition of the situation, which of course goes without saying to be solved on the level you were talking. But this is not the only level, it's a dangerous level of keeping the two worlds separated.
So just to add to the point that you're making, I think one of the key ways to solve this is applying the same principles that you apply in marketing and advertising and sort of translate that into news and media. I think everyone's heard of Upworthy. They're the fastest growing media company in the history of time, and the way they've done that is by applying principles of marketing and branding and advertising to sharing stories online, on social media.
Thank you very much. I would like to learn a little bit more about Eleni's daily life in treating the whole issue in Greece. What are your main compulsories there?
You mean in my professional life or as a citizen?
Both, actually.
Both.
It's always
Okay.
connected.
Okay. So what we're seeing now in Athens, as I said, is a lot of different NGOs trying to address different problems with the refugees. Several of them, a lot of them, are on the islands. They're on Lesbos, they're on Leros, Samos. We get about 40 to 100,000 a month, depending on the month. In the winter months, when the weather was rough, the smugglers were giving better rates. So we saw a lot more people, to save money, to travel on rough waters, and we saw increased drownings. But what is happening now, and because UNHCR has been very active, a lot of funding have been poured into that, and a lot of international NGOs, is that the situation on the islands have been stabilized. There are structures there to welcome the refugees, to give them what they need, and then they move on. They don't want to stay in Greece. They move on to the northern borders. Another problem right now is that there's no clear policy, European policy, global policy, on whether the borders are going to be open, how many people are going to travel through, or whether they're permanently closed. And I think actually that ambiguity, today 400 people can go in, tomorrow 3,000, the next day closed completely, that creates even more tension among the refugees. There are people that are there and they think they're going to be crossing and go to Germany in 3 days, and they realize it may take them 2 weeks, it may take them a month, they may never get there. So this whole situation, with thousands of people going to the northern borders, we now have 8,000 people in a small village that was a village of 50 people or 100 people. That whole area now hosts 8,000 people. The conditions are horrible. And the pace of the government, of UNHCR, of solving this, of addressing this, creating 2 more camps, the pace cannot catch up to the situation. So it's really, it's unimaginable what these people are going through. They're different nationalities. The Syrians can go through easily, more easier, let's say, but Afghans, Northern Africans, are not allowed to cross the border, so they're staying there. There's tension between those groups. Some people are getting registered fastly, some are not. There may be clashes. So this is a situation that is very volatile. It can spin out of control very easily. Imagine 8,000 people and suddenly a clash erupting. And what we've seen so far is that in the beginning, again, what I said, there was no deconflicting with NGOs. So a lot of people were doing the same thing. Now we're starting to see some coordination, maybe not collaboration as you said, but at least people are know what to do, and they separate their tasks, and that helps because most of the needs are covered. What I think is going to happen though, and what now the situation is with borders being closed, the refugees are being stuck in Athens and Thessaloniki. So now the focus from a transit country is shifting to a country that's going to host 100,000 people, 200,000 people, and it's a country that doesn't have the resources to even address poverty issues for Greek citizens. Again, we're getting a lot of support from the EU, we're getting a lot of support from UNHCR, but the situation is not catching up to the needs. How do you house 100,000 people suddenly? The plan so far was for housing for about 20,000 people. That's the capacity that Athens has right now. If we jump in the next week to 100,000, we're talking about number of people and needs that no structure right now can support. What is going to happen to those people? So what we're trying to do at the embassy, we're trying to build capacity of local NGOs, bring them in touch with international institutions, give them training, provide workshops, and another critical need, two critical needs. As you said, someone said children, and keeping children's spirits alive, providing art support, providing language, providing sports in the camps. So simple things that can really change their lives. And the other thing is also thinking about the social workers, thinking about all the NGOs, all the staff of the international organizations that are working to address the situation. These are people that are seeing small children being drowned, saving them from the sea. So these people are really traumatized. We meet with them regularly. We're trying to do a program now, a workshop on giving them a trauma support. So these are all things that are out there. Some of them are addressed. I don't know how anyone can address all of them, but maybe small pieces at a time can make a difference.
Yeah, that's what we try to do here as well. Therefore, I would like to open the Q&A circular. If someone has any questions to the panel, please feel free to ask.
I just actually want to shout out to Carol. She is a technology consultant who I've met this morning and convinced her to cancel all of her plans for the afternoon and come join us here. And what Carol is doing is doing disruptive education. And she made a very good point today. She said, Anneli, it's not about bringing technology to the classroom. The classroom is technology. And so, yeah, I just want to give a quick shout out.
Does this work?
Yeah, I did want to say thank you to everyone, because I'm a teacher in Houston. I haven't been in the classroom for a while, for many years, because I support educators in how we have an issue in Texas with second language acquisition. So one of our school districts that I support is having their own little refugee crisis, where they had 30 refugees come into middle school in an affluent school that was not prepared for them. So there was a lot of hostility and a lot of the things that happen with kids who've been through trauma. No one spoke each other's language, no one spoke the teacher's language. And so this went on for a little while, and then I decided to go back in the classroom and take over this class because I was asked to do that. I wasn't sure how I was going to help them. But this community, the first thing, one of the big things that changed was that I saw TechFugees live. And by that time, we were already teaching these refugees students how to code. And they're so smart. I mean, the common language was English. So I appreciate what you guys are saying, especially the point about highlighting the gifts that they bring to our community. That's been the biggest thing, changing the mindset of those students. They're the most impressive group of scholars, and we have these short little videos that show this. It's not my opinion, it's the kiddos learning how to code. It's the kiddos collaborating with the Texas Historical Commission. It's the kiddos dancing with Nelson Mandela's granddaughter because they were invited to some very prestigious things. And so I'm very appreciative that I'm not trying to do this by myself, that I can look to people like you and find ways to empower these students and then share that with social media and find out about deeply, refugees and all of that. I think is hugely important. The fact that TechFugees has an eye on the marketing, abroad and here and Andalou. I'm very appreciative from the education sector here in Houston. And I think the United States, I think you're right, Brian. I think the mindset of a lot of Americans, it just is that we want to know, whether we realize it or not, how does this affect my learner, my child that I'm sending to school? Are they depleting the resources by having Ms. Salva work with these kiddos? Well, no. It's the same reason you would host an international student. There's so many benefits. And we're showing those, again, in short little videos, because no one can argue with it when you see it happening. So I appreciate the platform just because it's super important. The idea, though, about the term refugees, a lot of my students have learned enough English to say they want to be known as refugees because that's such a hard thing they went through. It makes them stronger, and they can do more because of their heritage. So we do a lot around heritage learning, and it's a choice everyone makes about how they want to help the world. So it's a powerful thing, and I appreciate the collaboration, teamwork, whatever you have to say. Thank you, Mike Butcher. You are changing the world.
I would like to, because we have only 5 minutes left, to give a short possibility to everyone to give.
Does anyone else want to say anything? Because I've got the microphone.
We have only 5 minutes left, but if there's someone over there, of course.
Just a quick Tuesday question. As a refugee organization, do you have anything in place in case the far right continues to advance in German politics?
Well, it's a good question. I think the only thing we can do is I met a very, very interesting bunch of people coming from all sorts of different fields, and it's not that we come from a left background. There are different people there. There are lawyers and there are guys from marketing, like you mentioned, but also a punk rock fan. And we don't have, right now, the only thing we can do is we're holding against them. We're trying to inform them. We're trying to send out pictures. We get a lot of hate mails every day, so we answer them. We have this guy, he sends them every week the same mail claiming that 90% of the refugees and Germans are criminals. And it's my personal hobby. I'm always sending them the same mail back saying, show me your sources, and this keeps going on like this. I think what we did in Munich was voluntary help that was really needed at this point. I really have to address that this thing in Germany with the big shift towards the right is something which is really, really huge for many of us. It's not only for the people working with refugee movements. So the elections have been 2 days ago. I really hope strongly that people are going to form up, network, come together and face a strong opinion against that. Sorry to say I don't have a concrete instrument against that yet.
So we have 2 more minutes to go. Thank you very much for your comment. Please, everyone, try to give us the key factor in 1 sentence, please. Levante, you want to start?
Yeah, so thanks for being here. I think, again, I think education is important on both sides. It's vital, and like we said here, it's also important to keep up with the infrastructure and everything to solve the situation together. With tools like this by Ron, I think they are a great help to achieve this.
Just going back to the theme of smart cities, I think what municipalities can do in this situation is empower small groups like Ron's and other similar groups that we also have in Athens and Thessaloniki and in other cities. Just give them the platforms to do their work, leave them alone to do their work, and give them some resources if possible. I think that's a way for smart cities to kind of empower their citizens to solve this problem.
Well, I would advocate a smart city for even smartest citizen, so that we really take power of our smartness. That we have it in our hands. So open source, transparent, and non-racial, racist, and non-nationalist. I think these are issues that we hear and talk about every day, but on the ground they didn't really change much. They're even getting worse. They're getting globalized. We have the balkanization of globalization. What happened in ex-Yugoslavia now is happening all over the world on a much larger scale. And with this high technology, I don't think these things that were a problem are less, and that's my problem really. Maybe I'm just being problematic today, but that is really my problem. That I see the growth of these problems, with big technology.
So thank you for the platform, Jürgen, and thank you for sharing and listening. And I would say just keep on reaching out for each other, so all of us who want to help solving this situation. As a team, without vanity.
We'll get some uniforms. I think one most important things to remember about this is that while a lot of us are having this conversation, we represent a very, very small percentage of the country and the world who are actively engaged in and involved. So just for perspective, there are 193 communities in the United States that receive resettled refugees, and there's a fairly high concentration of people in those communities that are aware of and actively involved in supporting refugees and volunteering around refugees. There are 19,000 other communities in the United States that do not have that level of engagement, right? So I'll take stupid citizens being involved first because the volume of this crisis, the scale of this crisis is so great that we need more. And part of that goes to, I think, the framing. This is an economic and security challenge for the world, and that includes the United States. It's a political challenge. There are lots of reasons why people should be involved. I don't think it benefits us to sort of be high and mighty in the humanitarian sector or whatever and say we need to care more about other people, or we need to solve these problems this way. There is some on-ramp for everyone, and we need to be very conscious of the fact that until we get more and create more on-ramps, we are not going to have the scale or the expertise to address this in the way we want. So reach out, vote, whatever your method of involvement is, do it, and that will, I think, get us more on track as opposed to, close hold and sort of keeping it to ourselves.
Thank you.
So the refugee crisis, we'll stop using the word refugee, has a spectrum of solutions, right? Everything from on the ground coordination of resources to integration solutions, and all. Again, my only point that I want to make today is we really need to work as a team, and so I implore all of you. We need the NGO support or the NGO expertise on the ground. There's all these various organizations in Lesbos. We want to connect with them. We have the resources and we have the connections in the technology community. So please, talk to us and let us know what you need so that we're not going out there and building solutions that aren't scalable or you can't build an app for a camp in Greece because they don't have internet access yet. Right. So what I'm saying is we need that knowledge from you. We need that knowledge from you. Absolutely. So the solutions are so nuanced within every region because every region has their own issues. So that's my only point. I implore all of you to please just reach out and help us act as a conduit. That's why we're here, TechUGs. We want to be the conduit to connect all of you.
Yeah, I only can agree. Talk to each other is what I learned. And one thing is put yourself in each other's shoes. That's so important. If you're from this country or from that country, the same thing. If you're a government organization or if you're a volunteer, it's all biased. There's so much friction everywhere, but there are so many people who want basically the same thing. And they're driven by fear, but they're also driven by hope. So put yourself in each other's shoes, and you'll benefit so much there.
Thank you very, very much for participating in this panel. It was really very inspiring. Thank you so much to all of you. I always have two phrases, two quotes in my mind when I think about talking about this issue. It's one by Obama. The most important office in a country is the office of citizen. And secondly, one quote by John Cage saying, "I'm not afraid of new ideas, I'm only afraid of the old ones." So thank you very much.